Welcome back. I'm David the Good, and today we're going to talk about deep mulching, and I'm going to show you how to make a lasagna garden slash sheet composted little 4x4 or so space that you can set up in like half an hour or less and grow yourself some good crops. This little area here is alongside a couple of longer beds. The ground is all full of roots because we just cleared it recently. It's a total mess. There's trash here and all kinds of things. And it's a pain in the neck to dig this soil. It's hard and it's not wonderful stuff. So if I want to get a bed in here really quick, I'm gonna do it the lazy deep mulch lasagna gardening, as Patricia Lanza calls it. Ruth Stout called it the no-work garden, even though it's not totally no work. There's no such thing as a no-work garden, not since the Garden of Eden at least, and even then they were supposed to tend it. But we're gonna take this area and we're gonna clear it up and we're gonna have a less work garden. So basically we're gonna go fast and we're going to do what's called sheet mulching. We're going to mulch in sheets with various things that we have lying around, and we're gonna make a little space that we can put some transplants into. So first thing I'm gonna do is get the garbage out of here and get the roots out of here that are still on the ground. And I'm gonna figure out where the edges of this thing are exactly. I kind of have an idea in my head, but I like to have a little bit of a delineation of space. So let's say this chunk of debris right here is one corner, and let's go about 4 feet. And over here will be my next corner, and get the trash out of here. There's a piece of rock right here. Let's make that another corner, and our fourth corner is about right here. This is just kind of an idea of what we're gonna be working with, so we don't end up clearing the entire jungle and never finishing this video ever. All kinds of trash. This type of gardening is actually really good if you're working on a city lot or an urban lot and you want to get some food in the ground quickly and you really don't have the most beautiful soil in the world. If you've got nice, easy to work sandy loam, well, dig right in the ground. Don't bother with this unless you really want to. There we go. All right. I'm just gonna sever any roots that I think are in here. And the trees have been cut down, most of them, so the roots shouldn't be growing back too much. All right, that's about as much work as we need to do for the first bit of it, except I'd like to loosen this ground up a little bit. You don't necessarily need to do this, but I like to take something and poke holes in the ground. So if you had you could do this with a landscape bar, you know? A big piece of pottery. Just want to loosen the ground a little bit underneath so it's receptive to water and the roots can move down into it. But you could do this with a fork. You could dig it if you wanted to. I like to use a grub hoe. This one has a small blade on it, so it digs into the ground pretty easily. There we go. And I'm uncovering all kinds of broken glass and garbage as I go. So I guess it's a good thing, right? All right, there we go. Our first step is done. Good enough. All right. So the first thing I have here to dump on the ground. I have some slop from the kitchen. I like to put a little bit of something yummy for the worms underneath. This is slop that has been rotting on the porch in buckets for a long period of time. You don't have to do this. You can use some dog food if you want to. Dog food actually is full of nitrogen. Chicken feed. You don't have to actually put anything on the ground first, but I like to kind of get a little biological activity going before I do anything else. And now an important thing we have to do before we put our first layer down. Our first layer is the weed block layer, and before we put the weed block layer down, I want to make sure this ground is wet. It's been very dry, and if I put a weed block layer over dry ground, it might stay dry through the entire season, and I really don't want that. I want to soak it first and hold the water into the ground. Looks good. Now we're gonna put down our weed block layer. I know at this point you're like, all right, David the Good, you're just piling trash around at this point. I don't want to do this. I have a homeowners association, and you're obviously trying to destroy my life. Just wait, it's gonna be all right. It'll look slightly better at the end. All we're going to do is put down cardboard to stop whatever weed roots and that sort of thing might be underneath. You can do this right over grass. Like, you can literally cut your lawn, lay cardboard over a section of it, and then build a bed on top of it. It's really cool. I'd say that looks pretty good. It's like a mess of cardboard, doesn't it? That's what we want. There's our first layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a border on this. Let's find something we can use for a border, huh? You can use whatever kind of borders you want. This happens to be an abandoned house that we're gardening next to right now. And there's piles of blocks here, so I'm just going to use these blocks. I know they're not pretty, but the plants don't care because they don't have eyes. So you could use anything you wanted to. You could use logs, you could use bricks. We've actually used reclaimed cinder blocks and then done mosaics on them, which looked really pretty. It took a long time, but it was really pretty when it was done. And it took the cinder blocks from looking boring to looking beautifully finished. And it's still popular on Pinterest. Whereas for some reason, my posts on composting toilets never really took off. All right, let's start. all we gotta do now, put these over the edges. Now you can level it out, make it look pretty, and all that kind of thing. It won't grow any better food if you do so, but it may make you happier with your life. So do that if you wish. Looking good, if somewhat uneven. This looks like a pair of rotten underwear, which won't hurt a thing. I don't know where they came from, or the rum bottles. A great party. All right, there's our weed block layer. Now we're gonna throw some other stuff on top of it, and I have some things I've gathered. Some partly composted straw and manure from my kid's rabbit. You can throw down more kitchen scraps if you want to. You can buy soil if you really feel like it. Get some compost out of your compost pile. You're just gonna stack this up to make a good layer over what's underneath. Mostly composted seaweed. You want to soak that in water first and squeeze it out to make sure that it's not got too much salt in it for your ground. If you live anywhere near seaweed, you can also do this by stacking up straw. You can take grass clippings and stack it up. There's a lot of things you can do. The method is what you're doing. The important part. You're getting organic matter stacked up at least 6 inches or a foot or so over the ground. Ideally, I would have more of these and I could go another layer higher, but I don't seem to have enough of them. So I should have this stacked and pack it in there more, but I'll demonstrate as best as I can with a short bed. More composted seaweed here. And what else do we have? Got some leaves. Save your fall leaves. They're useful. And then I'm going to top it off with some dried hay from a neighbor's lawn. They let it get really tall and they cut it, and one of my kids raked it up for me. So you have kind of a nice finish to it at least. And again, the walls of this thing should be higher. And I'm going to wet this because what we don't want is this to all start running away. I want to soak this really well. I'm going to dump some more on it. Now if you have a hose, just keep soaking it, soaking it, soaking it till everything is nice and wet, and it's going to stay in here and it's going to look great and pretty and all that stuff. And now your last step, which I can't demonstrate for you very easily, is you're going to plant some transplants in here. If I had some transplants, I would show you, but I don't at this point because where we live, this is the dry season, and we have to haul all our water over here, and we're not going to put transplants in until the rain comes again. So I would hate to put some transplants in here just to have them kick off on me, or keep carrying buckets of water and I'll forget one week and they'll be done. When the rain starts, put the transplants in. So you're gonna do this during your garden season, not during your dry season, cold season, etc. Unless you're gonna just build it and then wait for that to happen. So if I was gonna transplant into here, all I do is dig into it. So you're gonna dig in here until you find the cardboard layer, pierce through the cardboard layer, at least make a little cut in it so the roots of your transplant can go through. There we go. So we're now down into the soil underneath, right through the cardboard layer and through the compost and everything. Then you stick your transplant in there. I am using a piece of Gliricidia sepium, a tropical forage legume tree, which you don't need to know all that, but this is simulating your beautiful tomato transplant that you're gonna put in here. Then you fill in around it, put that mulch back, water that puppy in, and it's going to do absolutely wonderfully. And I built this whole bed in about 20 minutes, so maybe less. So you got an area that's claimed. You don't really have to do a lot of digging or anything else, and you're all set. Now, what if you want to grow a whole bunch of food? If you want to grow a whole bunch of food, unless you have access to a ton of material, like shredded tree material, you know, lots of straw, and you know the straw hasn't been taken from a field that's been sprayed with herbicides. Most straw has. Rotten hay, a lot of that has herbicides in it. If you have access to a lot of material, you might want to do a large garden this way. But generally for survival gardening, I don't do this. This is what I do for a little bit of backyard kitchen gardening, for some nice stuff I want to put in for my wife and my kids, or if we're just having fun and we want to make a really nice patch of soil. This builds the soil really quickly and it makes for beautiful, beautiful gardens. But if you want to do this over a large area, think of how much material you have to haul. Think of all the cardboard you have to put down. Think of all the compost or straw or wood chips or whatever else you have to do. It's great if you can get it, but you're talking like truckloads of material. So in that case, we're going to use different varieties of gardening. But for quick backyard food production, save your fall leaves, get some straw, coffee grounds, save your kitchen scraps, make compost, whatever else. Throw down some cardboard, put a little boundary on it, put in some transplants, and you are rolling. And this soil will be some of the most beautiful soil in your entire yard. As the worms come up from underneath, the bacterial action goes through it, and it starts to rot down into the soil. And if it starts to get thin and weeds start to come up, crush them down with a little more cardboard and a little more mulch, and you're good to go. It's really a low work method of gardening, provided you have lots of materials. Thanks for joining me. I hope you learned something, and I will catch you next time.